Good evening, 7 p.m. I'd like to call a regular meeting of the Stratford Inland Wetlands Watercourse Commission to order. First order of business is approval of minutes of January 15th, 2020 special meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? Mr. Waite? Any corrections, additions? Motion to approve? Second? All in favor? Aye. Old business, we have no old business. New business, 2020-1, two-lot subdivision, 8,000 square foot upland review area. The address is, what is the address? What is it? Lindquist Drive. Is the owner or is it representative here? State your name and address, please, for the record.
Hi, good evening. My name is William Vincenzi. My address is 14 Sovereign Ridge, Cromwell, Connecticut. I'm here by representing my mother, who's the owner, Adriana Vincenzi, of record of the property at the end of Lindquist Drive. And basically, all we're looking to do is essentially split this one parcel into two equally divided, essentially more or less equally divided lots to be able to get approval for two residences, to build two residences there, which are both houses, both structures would be completely outside the 50-foot wetland setback. And I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with I'm sorry? Yeah.
The setback is more than 50 feet, right? You do understand that, right?
Yes, yes, there's the 50-foot setback and the 100-foot setback.
That's the planning and zoning, yes. Ours is the other.
Correct.
The 100-foot.
Between the 50-foot and the 100-foot
Right.
setback, correct. That is correct.
Okay, just so you understand that.
Yes.
If I may continue. I babysat today, so I had my grandchildren help me out on this one. This is your proposal.
Yeah.
The yellow is the only part on this piece that's unregulated.
Yes, that's correct.
You do understand that. So everything that happens that you're proposing is a regulated activity.
That is correct, yes.
Things like decks, things like patios, sidewalks, all the rest of that is going to become a regulated activity.
Correct. In other words, the structure...
Well, the problem being, for us to make sure that this is a complete application, that information has to be given to us at this stage of the game. It's very difficult for us. This is a very hydraulically active area. And at the risk of insulting the people behind you, I was going to remind this panel what the Hawley Lane project had to go through to get their project through, and they were actually not stepping on as much regulated area as you are. We had engineering reports, we had hydraulic reports, and all the rest of that is inclusive in the application, and what's necessary for us to review it. So I'm afraid that, at least in my opinion, that you're not at this point of the game are you a complete application. I think we're going to have to step back and talk to the conservation, the wetland supervisor, and
Okay.
get all the details that's required to make your application complete. And then we'll start again.
Okay, and just so to answer your question, to help you understand our position and what we're trying to achieve here. Because we have this property sold, we have a buyer for this property who is a local builder, reputable builder here in town from Stratford, who is under contract with us to buy this property on the basis of getting approval for two building lots, basically following more or less exactly what we're proposing here. The reason I cannot give you the exact building plans is because I don't know what this builder exactly, more or less, is gonna build. I'm sure that he's gonna follow to whatever regulations that are applicable per the Inland Wetlands Commission. And in accordance, when he does have his plans, final building plans, house plans, and everything that he's gonna do, he will, of course, naturally submit them to the commission.
Well, for that very reason, we cannot give you a permit.
I'm
I mean,
not,
and we can't,
yeah,
this commission, we can't just give permits on promises that this is going to happen. It has to be, this is a contract that you're entering into with us. And all the details, everything that's in that, it has got to be part of the regulated activity that we can permit or not permit, as the case may be. But we have none of that yet. We have to, that's what, you have to go back and get it, or I feel sorry that, you've sold the property, but that's not our problem, I'm sorry to say.
yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from, and,
I mean, it's very rare occasion, first of all, that we would even entertain something as extensive as this in regulated areas. I know this is not Yosemite, but it's still a regulated area under the Connecticut state law. And we're obligated under that same state law to make the review on all of those things, hydraulics. This is a very hydraulically active area. We don't want to
yeah.
allow something that's going to cause water problems for the abutting neighbors. But we don't know that.
Yeah.
Mr. Logan, the one who did your report, said that the water table on this property is 3 inches down. So it's obviously extremely hydraulically active area. We have to know what's the consequences of what you do. We have to know, how you're in a sequence of activity, how you were going to do this. But none of that's been given to us.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I can't speak on behalf of the builder who's gonna be buying this property from us and building. If I had all that information from him, it would, obviously, then there would be no need for me to, the problem is, he's not, and I can understand his standpoint, he just wants something from us or from you saying that, yes, we're willing to approve this, approving this as two approved building lots, provided that so-and-so and so, you provide us with the exact building plans of what you're proposing, which I know they're gonna be raised ranches. They're not gonna be houses with basements, they're not gonna be colonials, they're gonna be raised ranches, slab on grade, because you can't have basements there. And I know for a fact, based on what I was told by the real estate agent, in communicating with the builder, that this is gonna be, he's basically gonna follow exactly the size, maximum size of the house footprint that we're showing, proposed. So, other than that, I can't give exact specifics, details as to what the house is gonna, the style of the house is gonna look like. But nonetheless, I don't really see how much difference of impact that's gonna make, whether the style of the raised ranch is a hip roof or a gable roof, or if it's not gonna have basement, it's gonna be slab on grade. The proposed driveway locations are gonna be exactly where we show them. I don't see what the
You don't even have
issues are.
dimensions on the proposed dwelling.
It's the scale. They're scaled off.
No, he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand.
I don't think this, at least I'm talking for myself, I'd be very uncomfortable in trying to entertain this at this point. I think it takes quite a bit more information.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak, please? What could we do to help Mr. Vincenzi get the proper things we need to review? Well, what could we try to help this gentleman? Because obviously, he's not versed on what he really needed to bring in. So instead of getting him all upset, what could we do to help him?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, it's not a matter of emotion, it's a matter of, law and what our regulations.
Bill, no, I understand that. I'm saying what, he didn't know, he didn't have.
I know he doesn't, and I feel sorry for him, and.
No, you're 100%
But we can't,
correct. I'm not
Mr.
arguing with you.
Mr.
I know.
Fitzpatrick, if he gave us this,
I didn't get,
Well,
Okay.
he's gotta show the house out
no,
there,
Bill,
the
I'm
setback for
not
it.
disputing, I'm in agreement 100% with you. I'm saying maybe something we could explain to him what he should bring into us.
we don't have proposed decisions. I mean,
Right.
there's no such thing as a proposed decision.
Absolutely, no, you're correct.
So it has to be, like I say, the final decision, our decision, our permit is going to be the contract that we have on this piece of property. And he has I'm sorry, but he has an opportunity of bringing it next month.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's just a matter of, it's not ready yet, it's not cooked.
Absolutely. That's why I said, what could we advise Mr. Vincenzi that we need
Oh,
to
yeah,
see?
he
Maybe
can-
Kelly could tell him what he needs, and then we could get...
And he, like I say, we can give him, I'm sure Kelly can certainly help him with the information
Yeah,
that's
what I'm
required.
saying. I think he was a little confused. I don't want...
Well, I think he hasn't never done this before,
Right,
right?
that would be...
Yeah, yeah. So
No,
maybe
we-
he should,
Yeah, I've done it, and again, my apologies if apparently the board and you were looking for something much more
Yeah.
detailed. Basically, whatever I submitted to Kelly Kerrigan, which I was told what was needed, I felt, based on tonight's meeting, would be sufficient for
Well, that's
the
fine.
commission
And-
to
and-
vote on. And here, I'm being told that I need a complete set of plans, hydrological calculations. This is not a complicated, it's a very simple two-lot split, a first lot cut. And all I'm asking for the board is, yes, I want to provide you whatever other information you need, but I
So-
just,
you don't know what,
If I may,
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
perhaps
and if I knew.
you could, perhaps
Oh,
you
I'm
could
sorry,
work
go
with
Yeah.
Kelly, the conservation supervisor, and she can help you and guide you and your engineer or this proposed buyer, builders, engineer, consultants, whatever, to come up with an application that's complete, with a building that's 20 by 40 or 30 by 60 or 27 by whatever, elevations and things like that. So we can have a complete application that we can then at least consider. Kelly will work with you on it.
Okay.
She's not gonna do the work for you.
Right, no, I understand that. As long as
But-
I know exactly what it is.
She'll
Do you
try
need
to-
detailed
she'll try to help you
architectural
and-
plans, or just building
Point you in the right direction
footprint sizes?
so that you come back with a complete application. Does that make sense?
Yes. Because, like Mr. Vincenzi, I know it seems to you it's a simple application, but as Mr. McCann said, building sizes matter, water runoff, it's not as simple as a simple building. And I know you didn't know, that's why I want to try to help you.
And
Yeah,
this,
and I
this
appreciate that,
parcel
too.
is, it looks like this parcel is 14 or 15 adjoining properties.
Yes. Yeah, and this is,
So-
it's a very,
That's the main
yeah,
problem.
We have to be concerned that now or formerly of Artico or now or formerly of Davis doesn't come back to us and say, hey, my cellar's flooded, you let these guys build that house, or,
right. Well, and that's why we're doing only we're showing only two proposed residences at the end, very end of Linkrest Drive, because we know we can't do anything else with the rest of that property. So everything else to the rear, center and rear of that property is gonna remain untouched as is. So, you know, I don't see how that would, you know, affect the properties behind them. Maybe the people to the sides, on either side of, on both Johnson Avenue and Spring Street, I believe it's Spring Street, may have concerns, but right now, the fact of the matter is, this property has been used as a dumping ground for years and years. The surrounding property is all older houses that were built many years ago. So we're just trying to get this sold, get someone, local builder, develop it, clean it up, improve the neighborhood. It's honestly, guys, the place, if you go take a ride there yourselves, walk inside the lot, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's just a horrible condition. Trash been thrown there for years, and we're just trying to do something good here for the town that's positive for the town and all the surrounding residents and neighborhood. And you know, like I said, I want to give you guys as much as whatever information that's needed for you to render a decision. But at this point, again, we just want to be able to show something or tell the buyer that we have in contract with, say, yes, once you provide your exact building plans, the house plans that you're going to build, yes, they will review it, and as long as everything meets their requirements, you should have no problems getting approval. And that's really all we're looking for. You know, otherwise, if I have to go through a complete detailed hydrologic reports, drainage, details, and everything, I might as well build the houses myself. And for me, it's just not.
Someone is gonna have to go through that,
Yes.
clearly.
Yes, oh, absolutely, and they will, and they will.
Yeah, I approve.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. Have you had any feedback from the surrounding residents at all, or as to any positive or negatives to what's going to happen here?
Actually, I did get positive feedback from two of the neighbors that are on Spring Street, and I don't have their exact names here, I forgot. It's in the list of names of abutting property owners. But when they saw me in there with the surveyor staking out the property corners, they were very excited and happy. They said, oh, finally, Bill, something's finally being done, it's gonna happen here. Finally, you know, we're happy to see that the property is gonna be developed, because they feel bad too. That my father tried many years ago to get a 4-lot subdivision there approved, and unfortunately, it wasn't approved. The town shot it down because or inland wetlands, because they were afraid that, I guess, they were concerned that the design of the whatever it was that the previous engineer had shown, a subsurface drainage system, retention system, so to speak, would not work, would not be practical. So, unfortunately, my father passed away since then. We never were able to do anything with the property since then. My mother's a widow, has been paying taxes all these years on the property, and she just can't afford it anymore. She's retired, she's a widow, and, you know, that's why we need to sell. And I live far away, and I can't build on them. Otherwise, I would build myself. So that's why we decided to do the simplest, easiest, the least complicated scenario that we felt the town would be happy with, that would work, would be practical, and that the neighbors would be happy with. And also, part of one of the things that we agreed to do, which would help the town out, and John Casey Engineering was very happy about, was deeding that portion of the parcel of property to the town of Stratford for a turnaround, a little hammerhead, which right now, there is nothing there, and it's very difficult for emergency vehicles or trucks to turn around at the end of Lindcrest Drive. So that's one of the things that we're...
Yeah, the question I have is in it, and Mr. Wade brought up a good point. Should we consider this application as a significant activity. With the amount of abutters that are involved in this parcel and the way the parcel is located in a tight residential area, should the public have a chance to speak on this because of its proximity? And not significant impact, but for informational type public hearing. I would pose that to Kelly and get her opinion on that, or the other commissioners. What do you?
But we can address that. We can address that when we have a completed application that's accepted.
Okay.
And then we can make a determination.
Okay. I
At
just
that
brought
point.
up, just brought up
So-
a question, so.
Any other comments? So we have a motion and a second to table.
We have to give
No.
them something to know.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying
Yep.
to do it tonight.
All right,
No.
we have a motion and a second to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're going to table it. So, if you can get in touch with Kelly,
Okay,
she can try to help you, so you can come back with something that we
definitely.
can act on.
Okay,
Okay?
definitely.
Thank
We'll do
you.
that. All right, thank you, thank you.
Next piece of new business is 2017-4577 Hawley Lane. Are the owner or his representatives here? I believe they are.
Let's see what we got here.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? This is Barry Knott Esquire.
How you doing? Good, good to see you. Yeah, I see. Yeah, he's here with us. Yeah, certainly, certainly. All right.
Because he's right. Would you please state your name and address for the secretary?
My name is Barry Knott. I'm a lawyer with the firm of Knott and Dunn with offices at 1656 Main Street. And I'm here this evening on behalf of Par One Development, LLC, the managing member of which is Jim Fitzpatrick, who sits behind me. And I want to make a reference to some exhibits that I've just handed to each of you, to which I'll be making reference in the course of my presentation. The first, Exhibit 1, is a copy of the cease and desist letter that Kelly sent Jim, dated February 13th, 2020. And I've highlighted the area of violations which he has cited as a reason for the cease and desist. Exhibit 2 is an existing conditions survey map that I want to point out a couple of things on this for you. This shows the existing house formerly belonging to Lucy Sedlak. You'll see the existing one-story family in the lower part of the survey. And I've highlighted in blue the wetlands delineation line, which circles the old house. And you can see that the wetlands extends to the south beyond that blue line into an area where Lucy Sedlak had mowed the lawn and had significantly encroached into that wetlands area based upon a permit that she had received in 1981 from DEP, which I'll get to a little bit later. The pink area up on top is a survey of the whole piece. And this piece is 3.2 acres. As you can see, it's long and narrow. It's got about 225 feet
What's this piece?
on Hawley Lane. It's a total of 139,000 square feet. Of this 3.2 acres, 2.03 acres is uplands, and 1.17 acres is wetlands. The lot extends back from Hawley Lane 1,168 feet on the southwesterly boundary and 1,350 feet on its northerly boundary. And you will note from the portion of the map that's outlined in pink, about 2/3 of the way back from Hawley Lane, that there's a CL&P, now Eversource, easement area which runs through this property as well as all of the properties adjacent to this property running from the Housatonic River to the city of Bridgeport line. Those big towers that run through the north end of Stratford runs through this property, as you can see on this map. And I'll talk more about those electrical transmission towers in a minute. Exhibit 3 is a site development plan. And this is a copy of the plan that was approved by this commission back in 2017. And it was approval for a 2,250 square foot restaurant, 38 parking spaces. Once again, I've highlighted in blue the area that delineates the extent of the wetlands. And as you can see, to the right of that blue area, we're going to have some parking lot. We're going to fill in wetlands area that previously had been used by Lucy Sedgwick as her loan, which was wetland area. And I just show you this because this is essentially what this commission approved in 2017. Now, getting to the area, the issue of the violations. Exhibit 4 is a drone photo of the site when Kelly first saw it. She must have received a complaint. She went out and looked at it. This is what she saw, and as you can see, the house is in a state of disrepair, obviously, and you can see lettering on the top of the house roof. No cut, cut, no cut, cut. That lettering was put there by the fire department because, with Jim's permission, they had asked him if they could use this property to train the firemen in exercises as to how to get into a firehouse through the roof without getting injured. So they were doing exercises at this property with Jim's permission. But the most important part is you can see just to the lower right of the house corner, right inside the silt fence, there is an area of fill. And you can see from that area of fill that there's concrete debris that's scattered around the fill area. And this was left there by Eversource when they were doing construction work to reconfigure the poles, the towers that are located in the area. They were going through and digging up the tower bases, doing them all over again so they wouldn't fall down. They asked him if they could drop some clean fill at the property, and he said yes. So this photograph number 4 is the pre-Kelly photograph, okay? And then based upon Kelly's discussions with Jim, exhibit number 5 is a post-Kelly inspection photograph. And these photographs are 2 photographs of the same condition. And the only difference that you can see here is that the debris has been moved to the center of the driveway, and the concrete debris that was left on site by Eversource has been segregated over into the corner of the property over by the house. Now, this debris is located completely within the existing driveway area, okay? So that's the after photo. Exhibit 6 is a schematic of essentially the site development plan. It's a combination of the site development plan and the existing conditions plan. And I say a combination because it shows the existing house, but it shows the infrastructure improvements that were approved by the Wetlands Commission. For instance, it shows, once again, it shows the blue line where the wetlands is delineated, as on the same 2 other maps. And it shows the location of the debris, which is the green hatched area that is located inside that wetland area. And it also shows the site remediation work that will be done by Jim as part of his wetlands approval. And if you will look and compare this to Exhibits 2 and 3, the lawn area surrounding the existing residential home, as I indicated earlier, extends significantly beyond the wetlands line into the wetlands itself. Exhibit 7 is a letter to Ms. Sedlak, our former owner, from the DEP dated October 27th, 1981, in which DEP approved Ms. Sedlak's application to, quote, fill materials within inland wetlands for the lawn and garden areas associated with the residential property located at 577 Hawley Lane. And I've highlighted in yellow on the second page of this letter the language that I just quoted to you. So Ms. Sedlak wanted to have a lawn in her backyard. Either this commission wasn't in business yet, or it was just starting in business. She dealt directly with DEP. She wrote them, she sent them plans, and they approved her to fill in the wetlands, essentially where her lawn is located. This letter is is significant because it indicates that Ms. Sedlak obtained permission to fill the wetlands and area of her lawn back in 1981 and has maintained that lawn and garden area ever since. As you can see from Exhibit 3, which is the site development
Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to be disrespectful to you, Mr. Attorney Nutt. We've heard this, and we've adjudicated that. We gave you a permit. You got the permit. All we're trying to do is get you back on track to what the original scenario was.
I'm getting there, Mr. McCann, and I don't think everybody...
Well, because we had long discussion about the Sedlak. Were you the attorney on
Yes,
this?
of course.
I will let him continue.
Well, I don't
Let
think
him
everybody...
continue.
I don't think everybody's heard it, Bill. You did,
I haven't.
because you've been here for a long time, but I don't think...
I haven't.
I know. No. When we gave the permit on this last application, we went through
That was in
this stuff.
2017.
Yeah?
Not
Okay.
all these,
All right.
not
All
all
right.
these people were here. at that time.
Let him go on.
I'm not going to be
It'll be
long.
quicker.
I won't be long. Exhibit 8 is a copy of the original permit. And in it, on the first page, it makes reference to conditions 2 through 5 must be satisfied prior to the commencement of the work, and conditions 3, 4, and 5 must be completed prior to the issuance of the building permits. Condition 2 requires a pre-construction meeting to be held with the Conservation Department staff prior to any site disturbance. No site disturbance has occurred as yet. Condition 3 requires the filing of a performance bond prior to the commencement of work on the site. We have not begun to do work on the site. We haven't posted the bond yet, and we haven't done any demolition work, and we haven't started any construction activity. So, and then condition 4 requires the posting of 2 conservation easements. That will be done when we start construction. We're not going to do it now because we're in the process of lining up construction financing now. And if the construction financing doesn't come through, then this project is never going to get developed, and we're not going to put a conservation easement onto property where the project may never be developed. The conservation easement goes on when we take out building permits and post the bond. So all that has occurred thus far on this location that gave rise to the cease and desist is that the Stratford Fire Department requested from my client, and was granted permission from Jim to use the existing house as a training location for the Stratford Fire Department. As I indicated, they wanted to use the roof of the house to teach the firemen how to gain access to a burning structure without going through the roof dangerously. Exhibit 9 is a letter from Fire Marshal Lampard in which he confirms that he had asked Jim for permission to do this. Jim had granted it to him, and Brian was very grateful for having had this opportunity to train the firemen at no cost to the town. Similarly, the other thing that happened on this site was that Eversource, when it was doing the tower reconstruction work for the towers that were in the vicinity of this property, They were looking for a place to dispose of something like 300 cubic feet of fill, clean fill, of which some was concrete, as you can see from the photos. And Jim gave him permission to dump it, and that's what the photograph showed, and we've since moved it into a location where there's no prejudice to the wetland. Now, we tried to get a letter from Eversource confirming what I just told you, but Eversource was not willing to give us a letter. However, I have enclosed as Exhibit D a text message from the contractor that was dealing with Eversource, in which he indicates that Eversource was not willing to give us a letter confirming what I just told you. So, now, suffice to say that when the fire department and Eversource used the property, Jim was not in a position to begin demolition or construction because of the delays in his construction financing. However, he was willing to do a favor to the fire department and the electric company. Perhaps he should have been more cognizant of the details contained in the wetlands permit. However, since he had not started demolition and had not begun site development, it was not necessary for him to post a bond, which is one of the conditions of the cease and desist, and therefore he did not think it was necessary to contact the conservation department simply to allow the firemen and the electrical workers to use the site. That was another condition of the cease and desist. Now, he did provide silt fencing to protect the wetlands, which he felt was adequate because of the large lawn area immediately adjacent to the fill site had already been permitted as a wetland fill area. So where he put the silt fence, about which he did not get Kelly's input, he put that silt fence up not to protect wetlands that are valuable, but to protect wetlands that had already been filled in pursuant to the 1981 DEP permit. So we weren't he wasn't jeopardizing any valuable resources here. He was only putting fill material close to a wetland that had already been permitted to fill in. This is a circumstance where no prejudice has occurred to any wetland or natural resource over and above that which had been permitted in 1981. So, to be honest with you, no prejudice to any natural resources over and above what was done in 1981, no violation of the permit that you issued in 2017, and all of this was a misunderstanding on Jim's part simply because he was trying to accommodate the fire department and Eversource. He's doing them a favor, and then next thing you know, here I'm standing here tonight. So that's the story.
Any questions from any commissioners?
I have no questions. I said, let it go.
Mr. McCann?
What is the, in the terms of getting a cease and desist, my understanding is there's only two options. One is revocation of the existing permit, and the other one is a corrective action. We went through a whole lot of problems in getting this damn permit together to begin with, and that's not going to happen. So I think what we've got to do is, as I was saying, initially, is we got to get back on track. I mean, there was a scenario that, we had, and we had an understanding. In fact, what we did, Mr. Naughton and Jim, was when we talked about it, some of the discussion was the demolition, because often in many of these cases where there's a demolition, the demolition is worse than the building.
That's right.
So we were very concerned about the demolition aspect.
We haven't started demolition yet.
And, no, I know, but that's what I'm saying. We were very concerned about that. That's why we, wanted some detail and maintain a scenario and a working plan. And I think that's the working plan we got to get back on. I mean,
Well, as far as
I remember Jim said, we asked him, we said, how long is it going to take this house down? And his response was a day. I understand that it wasn't that day, but that was, you know, he said this was going to be a very quick operation. And so we were, you know, comfortable with that. And you know, we're not comfortable now. We want to get back to that comfort level.
Well, that you should be comfortable now, Bill, based upon what I just told you, because there's a third option to the two options you mentioned. You could revoke the permit, you could ask him to do some further remediation, or you could decide that there is no violation that should trigger a cease and desist, which is what I'm suggesting that you do. Because what's there now is not a problem to anybody. And as far as the demolition of the building is concerned, there's a deadline for completion of the construction, which is March of 2023, but there's no start date in the permit. He's under no obligation to start within a certain period of time. So I'm suggesting that you...
So what is the plan of, is it part one? What are we doing?
We are in the process of trying to obtain construction financing. Once that is done, he's gonna take out a demolition permit, call Kelly, and begin construction. I mean, we're anticipating to do that within the next 3 or 4 months.
All right.
It's difficult to get financing for restaurants. I don't know if anybody's ever been in the restaurant business, but it's difficult to get financing for
Right.
restaurants.
Well, like I say, you know, I think that, like you say, there wasn't a meeting of the minds in what was going to happen, you know, right after we gave you the permit. Quite honestly, I didn't think it was going to be quite this long myself, but
I didn't either. We didn't, neither one of us did.
yeah, and that's, you know, be it as it may, that happened.
Right.
But I think what we would all like and what we'd all feel comfortable on is getting back on track with the scenario.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Give us well, you were supposed to be, I think was it Logan that was going to be
Logan,
the
yeah,
site
right.
supervisor? He was going to start reporting regularly to the
We haven't
conservation-
started construction or demolition yet.
Well, you're working on, something's happening.
We're
on the
not
site.
working on it. The fire
Well,
department and
it-
Eversource is
but
working.
it's still
We did them a favor, Bill.
I understand that, but
Stratford Fire Department.
whose responsibility is that site? Eversource's or yours?
So when Lampard calls up and says, "Can I use your building to train our firemen?" we're supposed to say no? Come on.
I'm not supposed to say no, but it might have been a good idea to see, you know, what we had, Kelly, or in that case.
It never even occurred to us, Bill, that it was going to be a
I
problem.
understand that. So we're going to ignore that aspect.
Yeah.
But now we want to make sure that we're all talking to each other. That, you know, she's getting the information that's required, that you're going to hopefully give us some sort of plan as what you think you'd like to do.
I'll be able to give you a more definitive plan once I find out the status of our construction financing, which I anticipate to be within the next 90 days.
All right. So, if I understand what we have here, after this lengthy presentation, you got X yards of busted up concrete
Yeah.
and some process or something
Right.
that she has a problem with.
Well, I'm not so
Correct.
sure she does have a problem with it. It's clean.
The problem is that you're storing these materials in a regulated area, which is outside of your permit.
No, we're storing materials in a regulated area for which we have a permit going back to 1981. Let's not forget
I don't think your
about the
permit
original-
is I don't think those materials are for the lawn.
It was to allow us to fill in the lawn. I'm not so sure we had to come here in 2017 based upon the 1981 permit.
Oh,
Well,
one at a time.
Yeah, one at a time.
Go ahead, Kelly, yours.
I was done.
We're done?
No,
Okay.
whoever was next.
Let me see.
Mr. McCann, I
Thank
recognize
you.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. That was an after the fact. What we did, because I was conservation administrator at that time, and as you know, we did not have a wetlands commission, so I had to go to Hartford for every application was adjudicated in the DEP.
Gotta sit down.
The neighbors used to complain about Mrs. Sidlak constantly, and the DEP came down, they found that she was doing this, and we thought it would be the simplest thing would to be an after-the-fact, give her a permit, and that's what happened.
How much fill are we talking about?
Hello, James Fitzpatrick, 170 Morning Dew Lane, Stratford. There's a combination of fill, concrete, and processed stone. There's probably a couple of loads of, maybe 4 loads, 5 loads of fill, some mixed concrete in that, and the rest is processed stone. Probably have about 100 yards of
100
material in there.
yards. Now, are you willing to remove that, or you don't want to remove it?
No, I am actually have to bring in 3,000 yards to fill in that material up to that wall line.
All right.
That whole property's coming up 3.5 to 4 feet.
So then what's the problem then?
Why can't they
Why can't they
take the fill that's there and
move
use
it?
that along with the mix that you're
And-
putting in?
And move it?
I can't-
Yeah. Then
That's
that-
exactly
that-
right.
that seems,
I didn't work on there. As Barry said, the fire department worked there.
Yeah.
Eversource dropped their fill there. The fact is, that was in November when the fill came in. We've never touched that until Kelly wanted me to tidy it up.
Right.
So we tidied it all up, cleaned it up, moved the concrete that she was concerned about. There was some other debris and things. We got rid of that for her. So that was all squared away. Wanted to move the concrete over to where there be other concrete when we do the demolition of the house, and then get rid of the house, get rid of the concrete at the same time, and when we start, okay? So I didn't feel that, I didn't feel that I was doing anything wrong, but the fact of the matter is, we haven't done anything on that property since November.
all right.
And it's been sitting like that, and there's been no leaching or silting.
I don't see a big deal. I mean, is you willing to remove it and mix it with whatever fill he has to have, right?
Yeah, and as long as there's no carcinogens or there's
Yeah.
chemicals mixed in with that
Right.
fill anywhere that's gonna leach into the wetlands,
Agreed. I'm not gonna do that. That's my property. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna
Right,
fill that in.
right.
That's the last
I
thing I
understand
need.
it.
I don't know what the fire department used over there, but, yeah.
Well, they used
Water.
their pump trucks, their water.
Yeah.
Water.
Yeah.
You know, they were cutting holes, lighting fires, putting it out.
By the way, we're giving the town a 2.75 acre conservation easement on this property. Of the 3.2 acres, 2.75 acres of it is gonna be conserved.
Oh, see, that's a plus. Yeah.
Of which 2
That's a plus.
acres is upland. We're conserving.
All right. It's a no-brainer.
And
It seems to me this is one of those situations where no good deed goes unpunished.
could be. And to Bill's point, as far as getting back on track, absolutely. The big holdup was my financing.
Right.
It really a tough time getting financing. I would have bet my life that I would have had financing, and we'd be having breakfast, lunch, and dinner there. Okay, so that didn't happen. I'm very close to getting that worked out right now. When I get the financing, the next thing I'm gonna do is post the bond. I'm gonna get a building permit. I'm gonna walk the site and meet with Kelly, and we're gonna comply every which way we have to comply.
Get a demolition permit before you get a building.
Yeah, well, a demolition.
Could you get Mr. Logan to meet with Kelly and go out there so we can get some sort of an understanding, so we can get rid of the cease and desist?
I know him. Yeah. I'll ask him. I'll tell him what I did. I'll give him a call, tell him what happened.
Yeah, work with Kelly. The Logan is the environmental specialist that was supposed to be the site monitor on this. So, okay, yeah, and so can you get in touch with him or have him get in touch with
Right.
you and just meet out there and say, look, here's what we want to do to button this up. What do you think?
My biggest issue with this whole scenario is that the importation of fill is part of the permit, and fill has been imported to the site and stored in a regulated area without initiating the actual permit.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's true, but there's no harm done as a result.
Right, but you've operated outside of the permit technically. So we just want to make sure that we're following the permit.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm surprised that this whole thing gave rise to a cease and desist order. I mean, we've been doing business before this commission for a long time. There are good developers and there are bad developers. I never thought he would get a cease and desist order.
Well, it's just something we have to do, and you know that. Come on, Barry, you're a lawyer. What are you going to do? You know,
All right.
You give him an official notice. We come back in. You do what we did. We say, okay, the cease and desist is going to go away. Let's get together and talk and put this thing back on track. That's all. Doesn't that seem fair?
Well, the cease and desist order was talking
Well, that's always a jeopardy, but that's if we, on any cease and desist we give, that's always articled in it because there are some, this doesn't happen to be the case,
All
but there are ones that we have revoked the permit.
We're making a filibuster out of nothing.
All right,
And by the way, me taking as long as I did, half of it's his responsibility.
I just,
So, Mr. Hoydick, you
I
had
just have a question to Mr. Fitzpatrick, just to clear things up. So there, until you're ready to develop the site, okay, you're not going to do any more disturbance, you're not going to bring any more fill in there, you're not going to go in there with any more equipment. You're going to just leave things as they are until the time comes when you're going to do the demolition and the construction of the building. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
The only thing we're gonna do is if it goes into the spring, which I don't think it will, we'll cut the grass like we've been cutting the grass and keeping it neat and clean and litter-free. That's it.
You want to meet with that guy? So, to button this thing up, can we have,
We'll have Logan call Kelly.
fine.
Right.
That's okay with you?
Okay. And
It's
is
okay
the-
with you?
Is the commission okay with these materials remaining on site, or? Okay. You're willing to go based on what Mr. Logan?
Our next step, in terms of our administration.
Well, but-
It's going to be, other than table it to next meeting, I don't know. How do we handle,
Why don't
what would
we
your
do
suggestion
this?
be, Attorney Knott?
Suggest that you vote to withdraw the cease and desist with the understanding that we're gonna have Logan get in touch with Kelly, and they will compare notes as to what's
Okay.
proper and what's not proper. In the meantime, he's not gonna do anything further on the site. That's what should happen here.
All right, I'll make a motion that we withdraw the cease and desist based on those articles.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so, you're gonna have your guy get a hold with her.
Yes.
You're gonna let,
No, nobody's going on this. We haven't been on it since November. Only when we went back to clean it up. That's all we did. Tidy it up.
He's gonna be a good boy from now on. I can't say the same thing about him.
all right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Staff report, Kelly.
All right. A lot of these items have been on here for a few months now, unfortunately. Whippoorwill Lane, I actually talked to Kevin Kelly today. We finally made contact, and he had some information. Back in October, the judge upheld the Zoning Board of Appeals denial for that variance on the Whippoorwill Lane property, and it was not appealed. So that is the end of that on the zoning side of things. Other than that, I have not heard anything regarding the wetland permit, the permit that they have to restore the area. I've not heard anything from the applicant, so I could touch base with the applicant if that's something that the commission's interested in, or,
So practically speaking, if we live another 30 years, it'll be back the way it was. Right? He's not gonna do anything. He's got no money. Do you wanna foreclose on the property? We fined him $500, and we entered into an agreement with, as I recall, with the applicant or the violator, whatever you want to call him, and his neighbors, that he would do restoration. But once he got no building permit, I think he just took a hike. And I don't think he's going to do anything.
Well, I think we have to officially revoke the permit if there is one outstanding.
I have no problem with that.
for the restoration work?
Well, I mean, he has a permit to
Well,
build.
he didn't have, no.
He doesn't have.
He was dragged
From,
in here because he clear cut without a permit.
It was based on a violation,
Did he, help me with my memory, did he come in with any application to put
No.
in that house? Okay,
We dragged him in here because
all right.
his neighbor, the lawyer over there, Schofield, I believe his name was up in arms because he clear cut it.
Right.
Then he turned him in, we dragged him in.
Right.
And then, he threw himself on the mercy of the court. We fined him $500, which I don't even know if we got it.
We did get it.
Oh, that's good, because I don't think he had 600.
It was Shayna Wolf that paid it,
Okay.
the property owner.
So he's never come to this
I don't think
commission
we have
with a
anything-
build, with a permit? Okay.
No. Everything was conditional on the restoration of the,
Then he would come for a permit if he.
Because he gave us a site plan. I remember this, he gave
Yeah,
us
but
a site plan and I
think
remember.
Tina, she didn't go any further because of the,
Okay,
I think.
okay.
I don't believe we have any hook to foreclose on it either, so.
I don't remember voting on it for that, no.
Right.
No. Although, wait a minute. When he came in front of zoning, I was on zoning, I think he said that he had a wetland permit.
I think so too.
And that's what his defense, one of his defenses were on getting.
It's easy enough to find out. Kelly can
Okay.
go back and look and see if there's a permit.
Well,
variances. We ought to check into that.
Can we
Now that I
do it,
think about
and, yeah. I would like to move
I
that
think
any
he threw
permit
that
for
out
this
on
property
purpose.
be revoked.
There is one.
If there is or there isn't.
I'll do some research and report back.
Fine, we will. I mean,
Yep, we have.
Can I get an amen on that, or at least a second?
All right. I'll look into any permits and I'll report back to the commission. But as far as, I mean, I looked back at least to the violation, and I thought that the restoration plan was to be implemented as a result of the violation. So, but I didn't look back beyond that for any permits. So I will do that.
Kelly, I have a question. If I remember, because I looked at the paperwork when he was here, and I brought up a point that the actual property wasn't in his name, it was in his wife's name, okay? Even though he did the work, and he did the clear cut, the physical property is actually in her name. So there's two things going on here. She can contest whatever, I don't know how you would approach that.
Do you mean that the violation would have been,
The violation was on him,
we have it listed as her, as
But-
Shayna.
but she owns the property.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's just
Oh,
represent.
okay, I didn't know how that was listed.
It's listed as under Shayna Wolf.
Okay.
But I'll look and see if there's any other permits beyond that. Still looking into performance bonds. I need to make some phone calls to some surrounding towns because we don't have a mechanism. There's some performance bonds where we don't have any contact information at all for the applicant
She's got bonds from 1990.
that are still in our bank account. And
Better in there than not in there. Better if they're in than not out, right?
Well, no, because we can't use them. Town can't use them. They're just sitting there.
Don't they get abandoned after so many years?
Well, that's what she's trying to
That's-
find out.
I think they do. I think they.
I don't know.
I don't know.
they should,
guys
because
know?
otherwise they're just sitting
I
there.
mean, it's a long time. It's 20
I know if you had my money, I'd be asking for it back.
Yeah, it's too long.
It is. But we're still working with the town attorney to figure out what to do in these situations. I do not have quotes yet for the inland wetland boundary markers and conservation easement markers. I have some inquiries waiting on quotes still on purchasing those. Did you guys have an idea of the quantity? I was thinking maybe 25 of each or something to start off.
We spaced them out every 50 feet.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I know. We can just
No, we'll lose
stockpile
them.
them, yeah.
They'll get lost.
Not in my office. Not on my watch.
That's a good idea. You might not have to.
Mm-hmm.
when you have that defined, monument there, if there's any other activity or somebody's gonna do something, it makes your job easier.
Mm-hmm.
On those monuments, I think if the 50 feet is good, but a minimum of 2. In other words, if you don't quite have.
Mm-hmm.
I think each property is gonna have its own idiosyncrasies.
Yeah, but Dennis is right. If it's a 10-foot thing, you still need one at each end.
Yeah, you gotta have,
5 feet,
Yeah,
you gotta have
you
two.
gotta have 2.
right. It's okay.
All right, so I'll get like 50 of each. Did we want to bring the design up for review? We can.
Whose
if you-
design was it, yours? Well, that's why they were fine.
I mean, if you'd like, we can.
That's fine, let
Review
the old
them.
guy get his way. That's
Okay,
Yeah, use the ones that are already made,
okay,
you know, it would look like.
easy enough. All right, moving on. We are working, I don't know if I've told this commission yet, but my intern has been working on generating a database of all of our conservation easements that the town holds. I have yet to find one since I've come on board, and I think that's really important that we have this database so that we can monitor these easements that we are holding to make sure that the folks upon which,
a good idea.
yeah, exactly. So we're almost done. We've got all the deeds, and we're about halfway through getting all the mapping done for it. And then we're going to create kind of a template form for inspection so that we can monitor these properties over the years. So that's really exciting to me, at least. And I think that's all I have for my staff report. Administrative report, just the NOV the cease and desist that we issued for Holly Lane, which we've already talked about. No administrative permits, and that's all I've got.
What was that, Dennis? Speak up so we can hear you, man. We have a second? Second. All in favor? Thank you, meeting adjourned.